Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Islamic Defense Podcast. Today, we are joined with a special brother who I've talked to in Facebook in the past, and he has a master's in philosophy. And I was curious to hear his opinion on certain matters. So, Assalamualaikum, brother. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, alhamdulillah. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell to the audience who you are, what you do.
So, for the longest time, I have been working as an Islamic activist. I have in the past worked towards that goal. I have given various interviews in various countries, and that's what happened. In terms of my academics, I did my master's in philosophy from University of Glasgow. So now I'm back in Bangladesh, and thinking
Alhamdulillah.
about PhD or
Mashallah, mashallah.
whatever.
So, was it hard studying philosophy in UK?
It was difficult, yeah, in the sense
Is there a
that
lot of
they will tell you that they're accepting of all ideas, but they're not. They're only accepting of Western liberal ideas. If you're not Western liberal, if you don't convert to their religion of Western liberalism, then you're going to be in for a lot of trouble.
have you faced any backlash or any memories you can share with us?
Well, all the time, like all the time. So if you write philosophies that serves the Western agenda, then you're good. But if you don't, if you like, for example, let me give you an example of a question that came to my exam. If a girl wears hijab
Okay.
and if she chooses it on her own accord in a Muslim country, she doesn't have autonomy. She doesn't have free will because her society is washing her. But if a
Uh,
Western woman does, it's okay. So there's like complete double standard. But if you write
okay.
against that, you're screwed.
Is
So
it like
you
an
have to do
exam question?
the question. It was an exam question, yeah.
Oh wow. Is there a lot of I'm guessing there is a lot of atheists in UK, especially in philosophy degree, right?
I feel like almost all of them were
Wow.
both
Yeah,
teachers
you
in
know,
my class.
it's surprising, but actually, it's very similar in Bangladesh too. Do you know? Because
Not really.
because especially in university areas, I think mostly Dhaka University and other areas, especially in philosophy department, they are very active. Especially, the whole situation with the bloggers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they
so
were in the
that's the
philosophy.
whole thing. Not all of them, but there were a lot of them that were being encouraged by colleges, and I have a cousin who actually I knew someone who left Islam after they have studied philosophy in those areas, after they met various different murtads over there. So it's actually it's a very problematic situation, to be honest, even
Well, then
here.
I need to yeah, I think then I need to rethink philosophy. Getting a philosophy PhD at this point, it's not worth it. They will force convert you, and they will force convert you. So in every walk of life, if you are going against them, you will face detriment to the point that you'll think like, okay, maybe I should just compromise my values. But once you start to compromise a bit at a time, at one point you'll have nothing left. So, or you can be like me and stand true, but then you're also screwed like that as well.
Yeah, it's I've heard this from various different people that it's not very easy studying philosophy, especially. So, what inspired you to study philosophy?
I guess it's the same for you guys as it is for me. I thought that I could contribute to Islamic philosophy, more precisely Islamic political philosophy, by studying, getting a degree from one of the best universities in the world. But reality is very different from what they advertise, right? Like they
Yeah,
advertise freedom of thinking, but they don't believe a single thing that comes out of their mouth. Not at all. They're very discriminatory, they're very racist, and they're absolutely 100% Islamophobe. They will hate, they hate Islam, essentially. There's no other, they accept liberal Islam, but they don't
Okay.
accept Islam. There's a difference between liberal Islam and Islam. Liberal Islam is basically like Western idea, Western liberal ideas masked as Islam, which it isn't. So you have to necessarily convert to their religion. It's forced conversion. If you don't convert to their religion, you will face structural violence. So they will not give you good grades, right? So if you don't have good grades, all the money that you spend going there, studying
Yeah.
there, it's wasted. So now you don't have a
Yeah.
job, you don't have the it's all ruined. So they're essentially using violence to convert you to their religion. So this kind of violence, we call it the structural violence, using structures as a tool to exert pressure. Why do we engage in any kind of violence? It's to, according to Karl Clausewitz, I believe, he said that like war is a policy through other means. So they're exercising their policy, which is to convert us into their religion of liberalism. And they're using structural violence to do it. So, I mean, and then they come and teach us about accepting of others, accepting views, while they're using structural violence to convert people who doesn't want to convert.
Yeah. And this is an interesting thing because I think it goes very global as well, and I think it's not just limited to universities and stuff like that, because and now we get into the topic, which is, do we need human rights? So, which is that the situation with what happened with Brunei, for example. Have you heard of it?
I'm not aware.
Okay, so there's a small country named Brunei. It's a Muslim country. So
I'm
in that
aware of that.
country, you're aware of you heard of
I'm
it?
aware of Bruno, of the situation.
Okay, okay, okay. So that's what I was talking about. So basically, what is your thoughts on that situation, whole situation?
Could you repeat? I know the country, but I don't know the situation.
Okay, okay. So basically, the Sultan of Brunei, he actually uh, he allowed a hudud law, which is basically stoning, you know, homosexuals,
Mhm,
or sodomy, basically. So
mhm.
there's a law against sodomy,
Yeah,
and so there was a huge pressure, international pressure, and everyone was bashing Brunei for this law. And this is a perfectly legit Sharia law, right? And Brunei was
absolutely.
being bashed for
Oh,
this, and they put them under complete pressure, right, from all the human rights groups and all the other groups. So basically they
see,
created a
yeah, I'm aware of this in the sense that I thought that it was something different, but I know this happened. So Brunei was
you know,
facing pressure for this particular situation, but this is why we're discussing the topic of human rights, right?
yes, yes.
Why are the West, because of the color of their skin, gets to decide what human rights are for us? That's essentially
Okay,
the point. That's essentially the question,
okay. Yeah,
right? So,
so right now, I'm gonna take the what do you call it, devil's advocate position. So I'm gonna ask you questions that I think they might be asking us. So if that's
okay,
okay. So now
that's
the
fine.
first question would be that, isn't it barbaric to kill people who want to live with the person that they love? For example, fornication, adultery. Shouldn't they have the right to do that?
My answer to it is with a counter question, like how do you define what's barbaric? Who gets to define what's barbaric? Isn't it barbaric that a man lives with another man? Why is homosexuality not barbaric? Homosexuality is barbaric to me. It's primitive, it's atavistic. Why is the white man getting to decide what's barbaric for me?
Yeah, but I think it's not just limited to white people, right? I mean, there are many Asian countries that also believe in human rights. There are many,
That's
uh,
beside the
China, for
point.
example.
Regardless, the point is who gets to decide what barbaric is. I don't
Yeah,
care if the entire world decides that it's barbaric. We as Muslims find the opposite barbaric, and that is true for us. Who are they to decide what's barbaric for us? I don't care what they think. I mean, I don't
yeah,
think any
but then
Muslim does.
then they might ask, well, didn't we do the same thing in the past? I mean, we also
Yeah,
conquered countries. We also,
who?
for example, the Muslim empires, right? Rashidun Caliphate or Abbasid Caliphate. We also conquered
Yeah,
other lands, and we also applied
we
our
did.
laws. So now
Yeah.
they're doing the same. So why is that different?
So, but then you're coming with a different question, which is like might is right. Whoever conquers gets to decide. That's completely different from suggesting in any shape or form that there's objective truth to their claims. Like they're saying something is barbaric, right? That's
Okay.
different from we have power, so we are going to force our values on you. Do you
Okay.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're not
Yeah.
saying that we have, that's why we're exercising that power. They're saying they're claiming objective morality. They're saying that it is objectively what you're doing is objectively barbaric, right? They're completely saying that their values as human beings are greater than the values of God, essentially. Basically, they're saying they're God.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, ultimately what it boils down to. But and it's a very now the thing is that I understand like their point of view, but it's not just them that support like human rights. A lot of Muslims support human rights as well. So what do you have to say
Yeah,
about that?
I think they're
Like,
like, okay, let me tell you something. So before I get to that, I'm just going to come up with a short anecdote, which is like I once came to one of my friends from another religion. So he liked a girl from a different religion, and I asked him, "Well, do you not know that your religion doesn't allow that?" I'm not sure, and he clarified, "Yeah, my religion doesn't allow this." But he said, "Am I right? What does that mean? Why does he think he has the right to do that? Why do you think that he think he has the right to do that?"
your friend?
Yeah. So what does he understand by right? So he acknowledges his religion prevents him from marrying someone from a different religion, but then he says, "I it's still my right, so that's why I'm doing this." So what does that mean essentially? Why is he saying that? Or why would anybody say that in his position? What is a right?
Well, I think maybe by rights he mean like this is what he wants, and he should have the ability to get what he wants, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
but I don't think that's
especially if he, since he's living in a non-Muslim country, I imagine, correct?
no, he's living in Bangladesh.
Oh, Bangladesh. Well,
Yeah.
technically, Bangladesh doesn't have Sharia law either, right?
That's fine. But basically he's not claiming that it's something he wants. That's different claim. If you're saying
Okay.
that this is something I want, I don't care about anything else, but that's not the claim they're making. They're saying it is my right. It means he has
Okay.
an
Okay.
inalienable claim, like it's fundamentally true that he can do it, and it's objectively true. So these
Okay.
ideas essentially is coming from liberal Western world. They're brainwashing us since childhood to believe in their ideas. They're exporting their ideas and values, and they're brainwashing it. So if I didn't pursue this, but if I wanted to, I could have asked, what do you understand by right? Like, why do you think you have the right to do that? What does that even mean? What if I say that you didn't have the right to do it? They would deny. They would say that, well, no, I mean, it's objectively true that it's my human rights. Then the question is, where does human rights come from? Well, some like 18 people, mostly white men, after they won the Second World War, they just sat and wrote down some random stuff, and then they were you know, exporting those ideas. Those ideas were basically coming from Western philosophers, which we don't associate with. And then they're exporting it to the extent that most people in this country would claim that they have rights and come up with absolutely like logically fallacious and inconsistent ideas. And then they're going to claim that it is my right. Like, not a single person in this country even questions those rights.
Yeah. Yeah. We can actually name a lot of things in Bangladesh that have changed because of so-called human rights. Uh, Now, again, I'm going to go back to steel manning their position, which is that they might say, now this is not from a Muslim perspective. This is from, like, say, atheist perspective. They might say,
Mhm,
well, they believe in, pleasure and pain, right? I mean, the whole idea of
mhm,
pleasure and pain. They might think that, we should pursue pleasure, and whatever,
mhm,
in society, whatever creates the most amount of pleasure should be given preference over those that leads to harm, right?
mhm.
So this is something they might argue. So what would you say against that?
this is something I actually faced not too long ago. There was I have a feminist associate back in UK, and she was a very nice person, but she was a feminist. And she made this
Okay.
case like morality is that which is increasing pleasure, maximizing pleasure, and
Mm.
minimizing pain, which is in philosophy we call it utilitarianism.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, so that's what she said, and I responded, "Do you really believe that?" She said, "Yes." I responded, "Well, then if you believe this, then you necessarily also believe that if like 10% physically assaults one woman and gets maximum pleasure, while that no matter how much painful it is for the woman, like it is, as long as it's maximizing pleasure for the community, then it's morally okay." That's what her stance is, and she couldn't respond to that. Now, in practicality, this has been applied. Do you remember the gladiator arenas?
Yeah. I've seen. I've seen. I don't know if you saw the TV show. I used to watch a TV show called Spartacus. It's very violent, but it was about gladiators. Yeah.
So yeah, so essentially, if you, according to them, then it's also morally correct that you get people or essentially put Jews and make the Jews be eaten by lions. But as long as it's entertaining millions, hundreds, and thousands of people in the gladiator arenas, they would claim that it is morally right if you are true to that position.
Yeah. Yeah. Now coming back to
I
the.
don't.
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
I said I don't think they have a response to that.
Okay. Uh, well, coming back to that point, which is that, well, well, some may argue that, okay, fair enough that, uh, if someone, maybe it's not right if someone collectively decides something, but the woman is still feeling pain, right? For example,
Yeah,
is the woman consenting?
yeah.
Oh,
But
the woman
didn't
is
you say that we
consenting.
have to? Huh? No, no, we're not saying that they're not consenting, but that's the idea. So now you're
Okay.
adding more. You're no longer in the realm of just maximizing pleasure or pain. You're now having more arbitrary values into the system. Why are you adding consent to it? Didn't you just say that it's only about maximizing pleasure and pain? So now you're adding consent to it.
Yeah, but I'm saying that, they might argue that, for example, it's not always just maximizing pleasure and pain. And the now what I'm saying is that, for example, that the girl is feeling pain as well, right? So it's not
That is
necessarily
correct.
always maximizing pleasure. There is a pain element here. So
Yeah,
it's not fully
yeah.
maximizing pleasure, right?
No, it's minimizing pain. So again, what if by not doing something like something so horrific, the 10 men essentially are feeling sad
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah, but
So
sad
they're
not in
pain.
a physical sense though, right? Now, for
Okay.
example, they might
So
argue
again,
that, okay,
I'm gonna
yes,
I'm gonna interrupt you by saying, see, the more you get into it, the more you have to add arbitrary values into it. More and more arbitrary
okay.
values you need to add to basically take into account what you think. So the more I can always show how these arguments doesn't stand, but every time I'm going to do it, they will have to adjust and put a new element which has nothing to do with utilitarianism.
Okay.
So consent has nothing to do with utilitarianism. Like it has at a later time, but a pure utilitarian value, which is maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain, has nothing to do with like respecting like human values or what it means to be human. But later those ideas are taken into account, right?
Yeah.
So then why are we doing this then? So you no longer believe in maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. You necessarily have to integrate other values, other systems like consent, like other things like, okay, we want to minimize the pain, and it has to
Yeah.
necessarily be physical pain and not like psychophysical pain, which is also pain.
Yeah, but they can do that though, right? I mean, if
I
they
mean,
want to
you can,
update their ethical system, they can do that.
but then what is your ethical consistency? Where's your consistency? Every time you have a new
Who says
idea,
it has to be
like
consistent?
But then the entire point is that, right? They're not logically inconsistent. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but moral doesn't have to be consistent, right? Like, for example, uh, we have advanced as a society, so our
Hmm.
morals should also advance as a society, right? For example, new
Okay,
problems
but
can
then
be added.
sure. But then what is the criteria for morality? What is the criteria of how do you judge an action as moral or immoral? Is it maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain? Or is it something else? What is the criteria now?
Yeah, that's the starting point.
Okay, but then how do you add more values to it?
Based on different situation, because every situation is different, right?
Okay, but then what is the criteria
Like,
to
for example,
judge those situations?
even in Islamic law, we have a system where if new situation comes in, then certain laws
Hmm.
can be changed. For example, if certain haram things we can eat, right? Well, for example, we can always eat dead meat, but if there's nothing to eat, then we can, you know,
Fine, but
eat even dead
we
meat.
have a yeah, but we have a definite criteria which is coming from the Quran and the Sunnah. If
Yes.
it was if it said in the Quran and the Sunnah that you cannot eat like haram food ever in all circumstances, then we would necessarily have to starve. But it didn't say that because we have a fixed criteria where we derive our morals from. So because God allowed it on circumstances, that's why we're doing it. That is our criteria. It's fixed, it's definite, there is no inconsistency there. We believe, number one, there is God, therefore God knows more than we do, and therefore God decides what's moral for us. Furthermore, we don't believe that a human being has the right to make moral claims about another human being because what the knowledge that I have, the knowledge that you have, are we're as human beings, we're both equal. Therefore, I have no right to judge you. So that's why Allah says in the Quran, I believe in chapter 4, verse 105, that we have given you the book in truth so that you may judge each other by what Allah has revealed. So
Yeah.
we're not judging, a human being is no longer judging another human being. We are judging based on the criteria of God, which is greater than all human beings. So I think that's a
Yeah.
fixed criteria as opposed to some random values that human beings are deriving it from.
Yeah, I think another problem with and now with this argument is that if you change your moral system, like every year or
Mhm,
whatever, then how
mhm.
do you decide what is actually good and what is actually bad? For example, what you're
So
doing right now could be bad 100 years from now, right?
essentially, that's the point we're going for, right? They have no objective criteria for
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
morality. It's
yeah,
arbitrary and subjective. Like it's basically anything goes. You have no
yeah,
idea. Like at one point they were, because of utilitarianism, say they were putting Jews and in colosseums and having lions eat them, and people were enjoying it, and that was completely fine. They were mistreating their slaves, and that was completely fine. They thought those
yeah,
actions were moral. Right now, you're
yeah,
thinking homosexuality is moral, and tomorrow you might not think it, or you might think that tomorrow incest is
yeah,
okay, right?
yeah,
You just don't have any objective moral criteria. What is your criteria?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think
There's no answer.
that's the biggest issue here, because I think I made a video on my channel called I believe the problem with secular morality, where I talked about this. It's a short video, but you can check it out. So
Nice.
yeah, that's basically the biggest problem that I see with all these secular moral issues. Like, for example, who would have thought that eating meat would be a crime or would be a problem, right? 100 years ago, eating meat was normal, and now there are people like. Have you seen Cosmic Skeptic's video on veganism?
No, not really.
So he's like a hardcore vegan, and he talks about how eating meat is basically like murder and whatnot. So this is kind of absurd to me, because like people, all the people who have eaten meat, they didn't know this. So what are they supposed to do now? Like, are they criminals now? Like, it's kind of absurd.
I mean, I don't like. So I also know many vegans, and I respect where they're coming from. At least in the Western world, the animals are treated very badly. The butcher house are like horrible. But
Yeah,
we have a criteria for. I know we're going on a different tangent, but I'm going to make this short. But we have a criteria for slaughter, right? We treat our animals
yeah,
with respect. We don't really we don't put them in horrendous conditions in the West. But if you're saying that killing animal is wrong, then we're back to square one. Like, what is right and wrong for us? We're all
yeah,
gonna die. All living things are gonna die. And oftentimes vegans would come to me like, would you rather like, would you want to die? If like, would you be okay with your life being ended like this and be?
yeah,
So my answer to that was always, yeah, depends. If God ordered it, yeah, that's where the sacrifice story comes from, right?
yeah,
Prophet Abraham's son willingly, like when he understood that God ordered for him to be sacrificed, he was all ready for it. We are all
yeah,
ready to die. God ordained it. I have no problem giving my life whenever it's necessary. So if
yeah,
God tomorrow decided that I should be eaten, I'm
yeah,
okay. I'm cool with that. And most Muslims are completely cool with that, right? So if
yeah,
animals are created for an explicit purpose to be eaten and their lives
yeah,
to be ended like that. So that's fine. I don't see where the problem is actually. What is the problem?
yeah. It's I think some of those vegans, they a lot of time it just becomes kind of like a emotional thing. Like they always argue in a in the sense that you're how would you feel if a human was was put into the same position? Like, what's the difference? They will argue like
For
that.
yeah, but then then Islam or even Christianity, for instance, answers that profoundly, where Prophet Abraham's son was the person who was put in that situation,
Yeah, yeah,
and he said to Prophet Abraham that yeah, we're ready, like you should do this, right?
yeah,
So yeah, so our answer to that is pretty straightforward. Yeah, we would be more than willing if and only if God had ordered that. We don't believe that this life is that important, to be honest. So
yeah, yeah. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. So let's go to another hot topic, which is that the problem of homosexuality, or how it's been
okay,
propagated in the world.
okay.
So how bad is it in UK regarding homosexuality? How is it being preached?
I mean, it's pretty normalized. So, like for example, in University of Glasgow, homosexuality is something that they are like. It's no longer a neutral position; it's advocated. So it's more
Yeah.
cool if you are homosexual. They have
Uh,
pride flags. They have pride
yeah, yeah,
flags in the camp. Why is that? Why not? Why can't we have the flag of, let's say, like Shada? Why can't I do that? But they can put pride flags. If you're consistent,
yeah.
then I should be able to put a like flag of Shada there as well. But I can't. They will
Yeah,
promote
they
homosexuality.
will they will probably arrest you if you do that. I mean, like,
So
knowing.
that's a lot of inconsistency in their beliefs in liberalism. They're saying we're accepting of all ideas and all people, but they're not.
Yeah,
Liberalism is a religion. Like even if you're talking about people like Durkheim and other sociologists, they would treat these things as religions. You don't necessarily need to have a god to have a religion. Atheism can be a religion.
yeah,
So
yeah, and also
liberalism
like,
has a religion,
yeah,
which is
and
propagating
also,
their own ideas.
yeah, and also like even many Eastern religions don't believe in God, right? For the Buddhism, and a lot of these ideas comes from this Eastern, religion, like Hinduism. Like there are many different sects of Hinduism. Like some Hindus don't believe God, I think, and some Buddhists don't believe God. So yeah, you're right. Religion does not have to have supernatural beliefs necessarily. And
Yeah,
so
and most certainly is like they have a religion, they have a certain set of beliefs. And what is problematic for me is like they're trying to force convert you into their belief. You
yeah, yeah,
you will not face backlash if you supported homosexuality as you would if you supported, you know, death penalty for homosexual, which is part of the Sharia.
uh,
It's not like I'm
yeah,
saying that, right?
yeah, yeah,
If you say these things on Facebook or YouTube, they will ban you. Why? Why can we practice and preach our religion? Why is that?
yeah. It's I feel like there's a lot of kind of like, what's the term, virtue signaling. I feel like a lot of people feel the need to support these people because they think that maybe they're in a minority position. Maybe they do get bullied oftentimes. I mean, this is something that happens, right? So they might say that, well, look at all this bullying that are happening. These people are being discriminated against. So we should
Yeah,
support
but
them.
yeah, but my experience in UK is like if you're a Muslim, you're even in Bangladesh, if you're a Muslim, you're gonna be bullied, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's a fact of reality, right? It is what it is.
yeah.
It's
I
hard
remember.
than it is to become anything else in Bangladesh, or and even in definitely in UK. But the problem with Bangladesh is it's a Muslim majority country where the Muslims are being oppressed by the minority.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of a story, which is that one of my friends, he actually had a beard, right? He's a big beard, so he looks like a
Yeah.
complete, Sufi or something. So he had a
Mm.
big beard, and he was very, Islamically dressed, and so he went to apply for a job application, and
Mhm.
he was denied because he had a beard, you know, because they want clean shaven. I think he was in Air Force, not Air Force, but it was just a normal job. It's not even like in the army or something. So, so this is how basically it's being pushed. So, what would you say against that? Like, for example, they might argue that we need our employees to dress in a certain way. So, for example, not wearing the hijab, oftentimes they argue that it's to have a structure in the office area, right? They can
No,
wear it outside, but they can wear it here. What would you say
no,
against that?
I'm not gonna say against that. I'm for it. I'm
Yeah, you
for.
think?
I completely support. I completely support. Let me make my position clear to prevent confusion. I am completely in support of having a dress code.
Okay,
Right? But the question is, what will that dress code look like?
okay,
Who decides what that dress code is? For me, it's God.
okay, okay, okay.
But then
That
what is the criteria? What is their source of who decides that dress code? For me, it's God. End of story. There's no ups and downs or anything like that. It's very straightforward.
no,
Why
I was
God?
saying,
Because
yeah,
he's all knowing. He knows more than me. First of all. Second of all, he's my master. And third of all, we believe in God. If you didn't believe in God, sure, go to some other, let's say, kuffar or country where jahiliyyah is practiced. Sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
But in so far as you're in Darul Islam, which is translates to land of Islam, you better you follow the rules of God. But now you're going to say that, well, what about this particular case where they're suggesting to have a dress code that goes against God? Then my question is, who decides that? Why does one human being have the right to decide what another human being ought to do? I don't think they do. That was my primary point from the beginning. Only God has the right to decide how human beings ought to behave because human beings are equal, right? But human beings have a master, which is God. So only our master gets to decide how we ought to live or what we ought to
yeah,
do. No other human being should tell me how I should live, no matter what they think they are.
yeah. And I think that's kind of sums it up. And now, now let's talk about human rights organization. There are many organizations that advocates for human rights, and
Mhm,
not sometimes not all of them are necessarily against Islam. Like there are some
mhm,
Muslim activists in human rights groups. So, do you think that, especially in recent years, when it comes to
mhm.
issues of even when like things that are wrong in Islam, like for example torture and whatnot, like do you think Muslims are lacking in this area when it comes to speaking out against oppression, for example, or saying things that has to do with Muslim countries, like for example, honor killing. For example, it's not Islamic. So
Okay,
oftentimes the argument is phrased like that Muslims are not doing enough. Like where are all the Muslim marching against terrorism? This is the argument they bring forward. So
okay.
what would you say against that?
So again, I'm going to bring a small anecdote because this is a question that I got one of my French friend from UK. She kind of asked me something. She said basically that she doesn't blame all Muslims
Yeah.
for the actions, terrorist actions of some Muslims.
Yeah.
So I asked her, why would you even say that? Do I come and tell you that I don't blame all French people for the actions of French army in Algeria, where they cut off heads and put them on spike and collected them? We don't go to tell that to French people. We don't
Yeah.
go and tell, oh, we don't blame all Americans for the actions of America. We don't blame all British people for the actions of the British Empire. But then
Yeah.
suddenly we have to, like, we have to march or do some. I don't have to do anything. That's not my
Yeah.
subject, right?
Yeah.
Like, why is a farmer in, say, Bangladesh have anything to do with some terrorist in, let's say, in Jordan? Why is it his job to do anything? It doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to.
Yeah. I mean,
That's a separate issue. If it was, let's say, if we had, for example, an Islamic governance, and that governance was condoning such actions, then it is our job as Muslims to say we to have scholarly opinions and send it to the leader to say that no, Islam is not about this. You need to rethink your policy. But
yeah.
that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something like terrorists, essentially. You don't we don't tell Sri Lankans like, oh, we don't blame all Sri Lankans for Tamil tigers. We don't blame all Americans for the sword of God. Why is it that exception is only for like Muslims? Why is that?
Yeah.
Why do we have
I
to
guess.
march?
Yeah. 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 I guess from their point of view, they don't really have any justification. But I think from an Islamic point of view, we should be speaking out because Prophet ﷺ said that if you see something wrong, speak out against it, right? So I think from an Islamic point of view,
Yeah, see, I don't think this is my opinion. I don't think if you see something wrong, you have to speak out, but I don't think it necessarily has to expand to a global scale in the sense that, well, are you going to be speaking out against, say, terrorists in Jordan, Muslim terrorists in, say, Syria, Iraq, or what about the wrongs in, say, France or wrongs in UK? Like, there's like wrongs happening all the time everywhere. You're not
yeah,
responsible for speaking out against everything all the time. That's what I'm
yeah,
going for. Sure, if you see something wrong and you can change it, you should at least speak out. You should stop it with your hand. If you can't do that, you should speak out. That's what the hadith says. Like,
yeah,
stop it with your hand, stop it with your mouth. If you can't do that, then at least stop it in your heart. But I don't think that expands to like international scale where you have to necessarily like arbitrarily like condemn Muslim terrorists and forget about non-Muslim terrorists. Like that, Muslim terrorists are not even like not, they don't even consist of the highest number of terrorist actions in the world. That's a fact. If you read the book by Robert Pape, Dying to Win, Muslims are not the highest number of terrorists in the world.
uh,
They rank much
yeah,
lower. It's just media that hypes it up. It's just a matter of fact.
yeah, yeah. And another thing is that, for example, uh, I think, for example, like that, we should condemn all kinds of wrong actions. Not just Muslim ones. That's what I was saying.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's something that should be done. I think a lot of Muslims do speak out, but they don't get broadcasted a lot. Like for example, I remember there was a YouTube channel called OGN, and there was a brother that used to run it, and he used to talk about corruption in Syria, and he was a Muslim. He was a hardcore Orthodox Muslim, but no one talked about him. He was put into jail. No human rights organization came up to help him. So
That's what exactly what I'm driving at. My point is like when you say that you have to speak out against the wrongdoings, at least when the Westerns say that, they mean that you have to speak out against Muslims. That's what they mean. They don't mean you speak out against non-Muslim terrorists. They don't mean that. They necessarily mean you have to speak out against your own kind, and then you're part of their circle. But I'm not going
yeah,
to play that game. I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to speak out against any wrong, including the wrongs that your countries did, which is more wrong than any Muslim ever did, right? The
yeah,
amount of people killed by America based on lies Like no Muslim in the last 100 years had the capacity to do that kind of evil and damage. We have. Let's start by speaking about that.
Yeah. And another thing is that, like, the Western world is not really in a position where they can complain, to be honest. I mean, like, they control like literally like 50% of the wealth or something like that, of the entire world's wealth. For example, I saw in I believe it was like, I was seeing like how much money, private companies make. And I was so shocked because I saw the Walmart, and there's a recent study in, I don't, I think it was by UN, I think, where they said that you need like $200 billion or something to feed every human being on earth, or something, starving people. And I saw that the amount of revenue some of these Western companies are making, for example, Walmart alone makes 400 billion or something in profit in a year. So they alone can end world hunger. And yet they're not doing anything. I mean, this is
I
absurd.
mean, I mean, fine. I mean, that's their personal wealth. But like my point is like if you're not gonna do anything, I mean that if you're gonna leave us alone, that alone would have done wonders. They
Yeah.
destroy how many countries that they, one of them is like a neutral position. I have hoarded wealth and I'm gonna keep my wealth. Okay, fine. But then you're preventing us from making wealth. That's an active
Yeah.
policy.
Yeah.
What about what happened to like other like Gaddafi, for example, wanted to uh, have Africa under a gold currency, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
was he wanted to get rid of dollars. Why do we
Yeah.
believe in dollars? This is another tangent, but dollars are basically a scam, right? It's basically paper money. They're printing paper and they're taking your stuff with paper.
Hmm.
Why do you have to? That's a different topic, maybe for another time. But yeah,
Okay, so I have a comment here. I want to show you this. Is it okay?
okay.
Hold on, let me show you the comment. So this guy commented, "Why must Muslims blame the West, West, West? The first division problem was Sunni against Shia in time Muhammad. If I guess he's a non-Muslim, if they don't like the West, go live in Mecca. Go to West then." So
Okay, I think that's a good question. Can you put the question in the screen so that I can break it down part by part? There's like
sure,
many
sure, sure,
questions
sure,
here.
sure, sure.
Why why must Muslims blame the West, West, West? The first division problem is Sunni against Shia. Okay. Why must Muslims blame the West? Because right now that is the biggest problem for us. That's why.
Yeah,
That's pretty straightforward.
yeah,
And the problem with Sunni and Shia is, yeah, that's a divisional problem that happened many years ago and that still exists. So I completely acknowledge that as a problem. In the time of the Prophet Muhammad, if you don't like the West, if you don't like the West, go live in Makkah. Go out of the West. Then. This is the part that I want. I'm very interested in. I would love to do that. First, you need to give me back all the wealth that the West hoarded after
yeah.
200 years of colonization. Once you give
Exactly.
me back my, I will go and live in Makkah. But you need to first give me back my stuff, our stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You don't rob our stuff and then tell us to live wherever we want. We will go to the West and we will first earn back our stuff, which we are earning, which you should be giving
yeah,
us in reparation, right?
yeah,
When your Western countries bombarded our countries by magical weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist,
yeah,
which the West themselves acknowledged to this day. To this
yeah,
day, they don't even apologize. You don't get to say where I live. You better give me my reparations.
yeah.
You people better give me back my reparations. Then you open your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is that the amount of damage they did. I'm not even bringing up what the British Empire did. We all know what the British Empire did in India, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's been no reparation for that. And what
But
the
again,
US did,
this gentleman asked the question: Why do we go to the West and not live in Makkah? Because you hoarded our stuff. You stole our stuff. I want my
yeah,
stuff back. That's why don't we go to the West? Because you have our stuff. The
yeah,
wealth that we could have used to develop our countries, you
yeah,
robbed. like pirates, like thieves. You're not conquerors. You were pirates. You're thieves. You're looters. So we are there for our stuff. Basically, we're not going because you're awesome. We're going because we have our stuff.
Yeah. And it's funny, they come and conquer our lands, and then when you come to their countries, they're like, "Why are you here?" It's kind of funny.
So I disagree with your comment because I don't think they conquered anything. We conquered stuff. Conqueror
Yeah.
means you take possession of the
Colonize,
land and
colonize,
you make it
colonize.
your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did not do that. They did not share wealth equally throughout. Like for example, the Mughal Empire, for example,
Yeah.
when they took
Yeah.
India, they governed India as their own,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the British and the Americans, they don't do that. They didn't make India their own. They saw it as a resource pool where they drained from us, they starved us, and they took it back to Britain and shared nothing. While the Mughals was in power, I think around 20%, I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but 20% of the world's GDP came from India, the Mughal
Yeah, yeah,
India.
yeah. It was insane. I actually was watching one of the lectures from I can't remember his name, but I think he's like a Indian politician or something. But he was saying this, like we used to like, yeah, yeah, we used to like own 20% of the world's wealth. That's insane. I mean,
We
that's a
used
lot of
to,
influence. Yeah,
and
yeah,
then while the British had like 1.5 or 2%.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So that's what they did. So yeah, we're not they're not conquerors. Like conquer us, sure, and then govern, sure. But you're not doing that. You're looting our stuff. You're looters. You're robbers. You're pirates. So
yeah.
we just want our stuff back. Do you know you heard of this, right? The Kohinoor diamond is the largest diamond cut in the
Yes,
world.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you can give us our stuff back, essentially. So I hope that
Yeah,
answers the question. We will go to
yeah,
Makkah or Medina or anywhere where you want once you give our stuff back.
yeah. And that's the thing. So June, I hope that answered your question. And then that's the thing. Like in Bangladesh, Bangladesh used to be rich, right? The Bengal region used to be rich, right? I mean, we read in history
Mhm,
books. I mean, we had
mhm,
like things were cheap. Like even Western like scholars wrote in their books how cheap things were here, and
mhm,
now we live in poverty, and that's
mhm.
the reality. It's
Yeah, I mean, the Bangladesh is to this date still one of the most fertile land in the world.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so yeah,
So
but we famines and everything because of the British Empire. So yeah.
yeah, so uh, I want to ask you this question, and this is something another thing that they sometimes bring up, which is that uh, you know, for example, if you look at in the Western countries, uh,
Mhm,
for example, they oftentimes claim that their morals are superior, but a few hundred years ago, if you go back, like this wasn't the case. So they might argue that their morals, along with other things, help them become better colonizers or better rulers. And so they might argue that maybe our way is more effective than your way. What would you say against that?
but what is your criteria? Why do you think your way is effective? Because you were better bullies? Because you had guns? Because you got to point a gun in my head and say, you better listen to us. That's why you're superior. Is that your argument?
No, I mean, for example, like it's a combination of things, right? Like, for example, they could say that, for example, we have our different philosophers. We were able to have free speech. Speaking of free speech, like they might say that we have free speech, which is why we are able to communicate with each other more freely, which is something you cannot do in your nations and stuff like that.
Okay, no, I don't. Firstly, this is very important. They don't have free speech. This is a lie. Just saying, like straight up, it's a lie. They don't have free speech. They claim that they do. Doesn't make them. That doesn't mean they do. So if yours free speech, is, let's say, if you're using free speech to like promote Sharia, you're
Yeah.
done. So that's not
Yeah.
free speech. That's convert to liberal speech or die.
Yeah.
But they're using violence to convert them. So that's not free speech. So I'm not even going to entertain that idea.
Yeah. And it's free speech, and another thing is that, like, who decides what's free speech and what's not? I mean, like, anyone can, any country.
But then coming back to your first question is like, what is the criteria like, for like why do they think they're superior or they're better? Why how are they better?
Yeah.
Because they have more stuff. Because they have what, a faster plane. Is that why they're better? What about their social system? What about the fact that they're depressed? They're As the days go on, their lives are more depressed. They're committing more suicides. They're more frustrated. They're more lonely. They're more like their social structure is collapsing. Their crime rate
Yeah.
is sky high, right?
Yeah.
Their violence against women is sky high, right? You know, and all that. So what about those criterias where compared to that, Muslim countries to this day is still better than that.
Yeah.
But then even to this day, Muslims are brainwashed into thinking that, oh, they're still better, but Muslims don't report because they're
Yeah.
Muslims and they're conservative. That's why, which is a fallacious argument, which is not true. Even in Western countries, they don't report, right?
Yeah.
So, so this is basically brainwashing. Like, oh, we're just awesome because we're white, and we report because we're white because we're awesome.
Yeah.
That's basically it. There's no tangible evidence to suggest that white people report more than, let's say, someone from a Muslim country or a Muslim woman, which is just, it's like straight up nonsense, garbage.
Yeah. And now, just to
Again,
give
what
you
is
a, yeah, yeah. Now, again, just to give you a little pushback, which is that, well, they might say that, every not everything has to be, under free speech. Like, there has to, sometimes there can be exceptions, but then again, they will. So the question can be made that, well, at least, if since we have more free speech in our area, which leads to
Hmm.
more progressive thought and more advancement of society, because you can have different ideas being
Again,
exchanged.
for someone who did his master's from a Western country and from one of the best universities in the world, they don't
Okay.
have free speech. I'm not going to entertain that. So
Well,
if your
for
free
example,
speech is, let me give you an example. If your free speech is limited to homosexuals are awesome, and
yeah,
any counter argument against that idea is not something that's welcomed, then you
yeah,
don't have free speech. So what are you like saying?
yeah, and it's not just that. I mean, they don't even sometimes, sometimes in from YouTube, a lot of YouTubers get banned or their channels get deleted. For example, I noticed that a lot of, like, conservative speakers. I don't know if you know this, but apparently they were banned from YouTube because they were making contents that doesn't fit with, like, YouTube standards and their nation
Their
standards and whatnot.
narrative, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Now,
So
now,
exactly, again, your question starts with Western saying they have free speech, and I'm denying that, and I think it's a joke to even suggest that they have free speech. So if your speech is limited to liberal speech, then that's not free speech.
yeah,
Like it's not even a Muslim versus liberal. It's even Western conservatives. They can't speak their opinions like
yeah.
without facing backlashes. So it's complete garbage. I'm not gonna. It's just funny.
Okay. So, well, it was a nice discussion, bro. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where can people reach you? What you're doing nowadays?
Well, I've finished my master's, so from this point onward, I'm gonna see what I can do. But always, in the end of the day, my goal is always to promote and propagate Islamic values. So I'm hoping that part of me would be a constant. You can always reach me. I have a Facebook page. You can always reach me there. My Facebook page is Asif Show. You can find me.
That's
You can reach me there. If you want to talk about anything, questions, comments, anything,
okay.
you can reach me there. So that.
Uh, can you give me the link to the on the Facebook?
Let me Let me see if I can find it. Give me a second. Should be.
Were there? Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
yeah. Okay, okay.
So I'm sending you the
So
link on
I'm
Facebook.
going to post the your Facebook link on the chat. Is that okay?
That's fine. That's completely fine.
Okay. So here people can reach you, inshallah. I'm posting
Uh,
that here. Okay.
yeah,
So,
but
bro.
I'm kind of I'm more better equipped to talk about morality and political philosophy than
Okay.
say like other issues. But yeah, you could still ask me. I could be a devil's advocate for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. By the way, if anyone have any questions regarding philosophy or anyone of my subscriber is interested in morality or philosophy, then you can ask him any question. If he's free, I know he can ask, he can answer hopefully. So, by the way, let's speak in Bengali for a little while since we have some time left. Is that okay?
আর কোনো প্রবলেম নাই
আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে। তাহলে তাহলে ভাই আপনার সাথে কথা বলে ভালো লাগলো। আহ,
হ্যাঁ
তো আপনি থাকেন কোথায় এখন?
আমি উত্তরে থাকি
উত্তরায়? ও আচ্ছা, আচ্ছা।
উত্তরায়
আমিও আগে উত্তরায় ছিলাম আরকি। পরে এখানে আমরা ইয়াতে মুভ করছি আরকি, আশকোনা। তো
আসবো না
হ্যাঁ, তো কথা বলে ভালো লাগলো। উত্তরায় কোথায় আপনার, মানে কোন সেক্টরে?
উত্তরা সেক্টর সেক্টর নাই
হ্যাঁ? সেক্টর 9? ও আচ্ছা, আচ্ছা। আমরা
হ্যাঁ
আগে
তো
ছিলাম
আপনি
ওখানে সেক্টর।
আপনি
হ্যাঁ?
কোথায় পড়েন বা কোথায় আপনি কোথায় পড়াশোনা করেছেন বা পড়েন
ও হ্যাঁ, আমি আমার বিবিএ শেষ করছি এশিয়ান ইউনিভার্সিটি থেকে। তো আমার আগে থেকে আরকি ফিলোসফির ব্যাপারে ইন্টারেস্ট ছিল, বাট একাডেমিক্যালি পড়া হয় নাই। কিন্তু আর ইসলাম নিয়েও অনেক ইন্টারেস্ট ছিল। তো এটা নিয়ে পরে।
দরকার পড়ার দরকার
হ্যাঁ?
নাই যা পড়লে যা জানেন তা বলে দিবেন, কোনো দরকার নেই ডোন্ট
হ্যাঁ,
মেক
হ্যাঁ,
দ্য
কি
সেম মিস্টেকস উইথ এগুলা দরকার নেই যে এইভাবে বই আসতে বই পড়ে দিলেই হবে এগুলো আপনার একাডেমিক্যালি আলাদা করে পড়ার মানে মানা হয় না
আহ, আহ,
মানে না
হ্যাঁ,
মানে converting।
হ্যাঁ। তো হ্যাঁ, না মানে ওইভাবে একাডেমিক্যালি পড়া হয়নি। তো পরে আসলে অনেক মানে মনে করেন যে নানা রকমের ইয়ে আসতো, নানা রকমের শুভহাতের, মানে আমি ছোটবেলা থেকে মানে ক্যান ইউ স্পিক ইংলিশ অ্যাগেন? আই থিংক।
ওকে
So basically, the reason we were talking about my background. So the reason I started the channel is because I used to see a lot of anti-Islamic arguments and shubuhat being spread. So I wanted to tackle that basically. So, and at first when I started, there were not that many people here, but except a few channels. Uh, they were obviously Speaker's Corner, and they're famous for that. And but then later on, a lot of people came in, and and I'm still doing this, Alhamdulillah, hopefully, giving dawah and making Islamic content on YouTube. So, and I studied in BBA from Indonesian University, and hopefully, I'm looking for a job right now, doing freelance on the side. So yeah, that's my background basically.
well I mean I appreciate what you're doing and hopefully it's going to bring fruit but I would appreciate you making more content in Bangla because the vast majority of like people in this country don't understand English. Only a very, small group of people in the cities understand English. Most people don't. So I think our audience
Yeah,
would
I
benefit
wanted to
from.
make it in Bangla, but the thing is that, bro, are you there? Oh, are you there? Okay. Yeah, I actually
Yeah,
have
I'm here.
plans of making a separate channel in Bengali, but I need this
Yeah,
channel to grow. So, inshallah, I will have a channel like this. So, yeah, I guess we can end it here. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
nice. It
It
was
was a,
nice to talk to you. Inshallah, we'll do this
it
again
was
in the future. Sorry, I
inshallah.
couldn't hear. Inshallah. Okay.
I said it was
Okay.
a pleasure talking with you as well, and inshallah, we'll get together and discuss
Yeah,
the things
inshallah.
as well.
Inshallah. You have my
You can
number.
have method.
Yeah, yeah. You can call me anytime. You have my number,
Yeah, sure. Thank
and we can meet up, inshallah, and we'll talk. Maybe we can do this
you. Yeah.
live properly. you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That'd be great.
So,
Pleasure, pleasure.
yeah, yeah. Call me anytime. Inshallah, we'll meet up. And yeah, it was nice talking to you. So we'll end the stream here. Thank you, bro, for joining us. And inshallah, we'll talk again.
Thank you.
Of
Thank you.
course.
Allah
Jazakallah
Hafiz.
khairan. Allah Hafiz.